that one dance, baby. That one dance.
Hi guys, good morning. My name is Adeline Rosit from BSHM2 Capsicum. I'm here to discuss things about literary arts. Please keep watching. Literary arts may refer to a creative writing or literature. Literary art, which is an art that makes language as a medium, can be interpreted as a branch of art that contains everything, both oral and written, that contains elements of beauty and art. Imaginative from the work of someone whose result can be enjoyed because it has excellence and artistic factors. In literary arts, in addition to us being aware of the elements of literary arts, Satra art also has several types of groupings of their own art branches. Four types of literary arts. Number one is fiction. Fiction generally is a narrative form in any medium consisting of people, events, or places that are imaginary. In other words, not based strictly on history or fact. In its most narrow usage, fiction refers to written narratives in prose and often specifically novels, though also novellas and short stories. More broadly, fiction has come to encompass imaginary narratives expressed in any form, including not just writing but also live theatrical performances, films, television programs, radio dramas, comics, role-playing games, and also video games. Number two is drama. In literature, a drama is a portrayal or fictional or non-fictional events through the performance of written dialogue, either prose or poetry. Dramas can be performed on stage, on film, or the radio. Dramas are typically called plays, and their creators are known as playwrights or dramatists. Comedy. Lighter in tone, comedies are intended to make the audience laugh and usually come to a happy ending. Comedies plays offbeat characters in unusual situations, causing them to do and say funny things. Comedy can also be a sarcastic in nature, poking fun at serious topics. There are also several subgenres of comedy, including romantic comedy, sentimental comedy, a comedy of manners, and tragic comedy, plays in which the characters take on tragedy and with humor in bringing serious situations to happy endings. Tragedy. Based on darker themes, tragedies portray serious subjects like death, disaster, and human suffering in a dignified though provoking way, rarely enjoying happy endings. Characters in tragedies, like Shakespeare's Hamlet, are often burdened by tragic character flaws that ultimately lead to their demise. Farce, featuring exaggerated or absurd form of comedy. A farce is a nonsensical genre of drama in which characters intentionally overact and engage in slapsticks or physical humor. Examples of farce include the play Waiting for Godot by Samuel Beckett and the hit 1980 movie Airplane, written by Jim Abrahams. Melodrama, an exaggerated form of drama. Melodramas depict classic one-dimensional characters such as heroes, heroines, and villains dealing with sensational romantic and often perilous situations. Examples of melodramas include the play The Glass Menagerie by Tennessee Williams and the classic movie of love during the Civil War, Gone with the Wind, based on Margaret Mitchell novel. Opera. This versatile genre of drama combines theater, dialogue, music, and dance to tell grand stories of tragedy or comedy. Since characters express their feelings and intention through song rather than dialogue, performers must be both skilled actors and singers. Number 3 is poetry. Poetry is a type of literature based on the interplay of words and rhythm. It often employs rhyme and meter, a set of rules governing the number and arrangement of syllable in each line. In poetry, words are strung together to form sounds, image, and ideas that might be too complex or abstract to describe directly. The history of poetry. Poetry is an art form predates written text. The earliest poetry is believed to have been recited or sung, employed as a way of remembering oral history, genealogy, and law. Poetry is often closely related to musical tradition, and the earliest poetry exists in the form of hymns, such as the work of Sumerian priestess and Hiduwana, and other types of songs such as chants. As such, poetry is a verbal art. Many of the poems surviving from the ancient world are recorded prayers or stories about a religious subject matter, but they also include historical accounts, instruction for everyday activities, love song, and fiction. Function of poetry. The special advantage of poetry is that it deals in words. It deals therefore in objects, persons, actions, as well as in abstract ideas. Poetry is therefore, on the one side, more concrete and realistic than music, and on the other more intellectual. Types of poetry. Number 1 is lyric poetry. A lyric poem is a comparatively short, non-narrative poem in which a single speaker presents a state of mind or an emotional state. Lyric poetry retains some of the elements of song, which is said to be its origin. For Greek writers, the lyric was a song accompanied by the lyre. In modern usage, elegy is a formal lament for the death of a particular person. The term elegy is also used for solemn meditation, often on question of death, such as Grey Elegy, written in a country churchyard. An ode is a long lyric poem with a serious subject written in an elevated style. The sonnet was originally a love poem which dealt with the lover's suffering and hopes. In a dramatic monologue, a speaker, who is explicitly someone other than the author, makes a speech to a silent auditor in a specific situation and at a critical moment. Without intending to do so, the speaker reveals aspects of his temperament and character. Occasional poetry is written for a specific occasion. Narrative poetry. Narrative poetry gives a verbal representation in verse of a sequence of connected events. It propels characters through a plot. It is always told by a narrator. Narrative poems might tell of a love story, like the story of father and son, or the deeds of a hero or heroine. Letter D is prose. Prose is a form of language that has no formal mythical structure. It applies a natural flow of speech and ordinary grammatical structure, rather than rhythmic structure, such as in the case of traditional poetry. History of prose. The word prose first appeared in English in the 14th century. It is derived from the Old French prose, which in turn originates in Latin expression, prosa oratio, literary, straightforward, or direct speech. Works of philosophy, history, economics, journalism, and most fiction are examples of works written in prose. It differs from most traditional poetry, where the form has regular structure consisting verse based on metre and rhyme. However, development in 20th century literature, including free verse concrete poetry and prose poetry, have led to the idea of poetry and prose as two ends on spectrum, rather than firmly distinct from each other. The American poet T.S. Eliot noted. Whereas the distinction between verse and prose is clear, the distinction between poetry and prose is obscure. Some common types of prose. Number 1 is non-fictional prose, a literary work that is mainly based on fact, though it may contain fictional elements in certain cases. Example includes biographies and essays. Number 2 is fictional prose, a literary work that is wholly or partly imagined or theoretical. Examples are novels. Number 3 is heroic prose, a literary work that may written down or recited, in which employs many of the formulaic expression found in our oral tradition. Examples are legends and tales. Number 4 is poetry, a literary work that exhibits poetic quality, using emotional effects and heightened imaginary, but which are written in prose instead of verse. That's all, and again, I hope you learned something. Thanks for watching.